Hello, everyone. I'm Mia Sines, and this is Lori Montry. And
Hello, beautiful ladies.
we're so excited. We really are very, very excited. We're bringing you 8 weeks of divine healing. And when two inspiring coaches come together and say it's time to heal the world, it's time to heal the world. So would you like to tell a little bit about yourself, Lori?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I've been doing the work of healing in different areas of life. I really love working with women in their relationship with their foods and their physical bodies. That is something that I've really focused on over the last many years. And more recently, just really feeling how everything is just so connected, right? We can't look at any one part of our lives and look at that and work on it without looking at the bigger areas. And so as I've been working with people and realizing they're just, every aspect of our lives, from our physical bodies to our relationship with spirit, our relationship with ourself, our relationship with others, there's just every category. And since we're, multifaceted people, we need to look at all the different facets of ourselves if we really want to get to that next level of who we can be. And so I'm just so excited that we are offering, just trying to get as much into people's hands and into their minds and hearts as possible. Each topic is going to be amazingly useful to, I believe, to everyone, because we all have relationships, we all have bodies, we all have spirits. So I'm just looking forward to being in connection with you guys and getting to know you a little bit.
I'm so excited that you guys get to meet Lori. Those of you who don't know Lori, she's really a remarkable colleague and friend. And that's one of the greatest things that I can say about somebody is when you respect them a lot and you love their work, they mean a lot to you. And so we're, again, really excited to come together. Lori was one of the teachers in the SLR classroom. I see a couple of other teachers on here. Yay, there's Joanne. Oh, Joanne wasn't a teacher, but she's going to be. I keep saying that to her. Yes, she was. We taught a Universal Love Project together. She is one of the teachers. I'm sorry, honey. It's been a crazy year. So hello to everybody. I'm Mia Sines. I do a couple of things. I'm a business strategist, but I'm also the creator of Love Mastery, and I'm a spiritual teacher. And so I teach love, and love is in every aspect of our being, in every fiber, in every breath, in every thought, in every movement is love. And so we work on shifting into love from all the other areas. Was I a passive, soft child? No. Was I sensitive? Yes. But I kicked butt to people. And so I realized with two aggressive parents that love was the way to discover more love. And so I've been on this journey my whole life, and protecting others in school when I was in school, however I could do it. I even worked too, so as a love activist, I worked to help free prisoners on death row who are falsely accused. So not that I do that as an attorney, I do that as an individual who steps up with others and starts to run processes. I don't mean healing processes, I mean the actual physical steps. So we are excited to have you here for 8 weeks of this divine healing. Lori, do you want to open up, or should I open up?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm excited because, relationships impact everyone, obviously. And what we'd really like to bring to you today is kind of another way for you to look at your relationships and what we're going to focus on, because obviously we could go on and we could have weeks and weeks just on relationship, right? Because it's such a big topic. But what we'd like to do is bring it to you from the understanding of how attachment theory applies to you and your relationships. Because when you have that knowledge, you have the ability to really see what's happening for you in your relationships. And you can also start to understand how communication can be much more effective, and making it possible for your relationships to heal if they need to, and also just to soar in so many different ways. So we will start by just kind of explaining that your attachment. Yeah, wonderful. That's
so you all can see it by Amir Levine.
yeah.
What we're going to do is, besides the attachment, is we always bring everything back to love, which is a synonym for God, for creator, for source. And so, excuse me. And so that's, as we do this, we'll also be throwing in the communication parts in addition of what would love do? How would love handle this situation? Always keep that in the forefront of your awareness on anything. We love this stuff because this gives us psychology. We love it because it gives us the awareness into our human aspect, but we're divine, we're souls, we're spirit. And when we can blend both of them together, it's really magnificent. Lori was saying, we were talking about how our bodies, our hearts, our souls, our relationships, our world, it's been through so much this last year. And so our bodies, which we are going, I don't know if we're going to get into it in this 8 weeks, but I think we might get into the body keeps the score too. There's a lot of things that our voice, our intention, our communication affects us. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but it just came to share. Coming from a very abusive, dysfunctional upbringing, even though it was metaphysical, and I loved my parents greatly, and I know they loved me. My heart is larger than it should be because of the stress. So this is why we shift out of the anger, the abuse, the frustration, the hardship, and we learn to create peace and love and stillness within ourselves. And we make choices in our relationships. Now, this relationship stuff is also, that we're going to start to talk about, is also about your work, who you work with, how you communicate with people, the emails that come into you, the phone calls that come into you. We always need to take it back to, yes, we have our awareness, but we always need to take it back to what would love do? What would God do? That framework, because in that framework is where we find our guidance, is where we find the smoothness that allows us to be amazing communicators. When you're an amazing communicator, people recognize you as that. They're not afraid. They know you're not going to bring conflict, and you're going to feel empowered and strong. And when you're empowered and strong, what happens? Your entire life changes. Your entire life changes. You're out of fear. You're out of doubt. These are real powerful things. Do you want to pick up from here, Lori?
Yeah.
We're going to bounce off each other.
Yeah, and I'm still just, really taking that in and how powerful that is. I have a question though that I would love to maybe see hands or something. When Mia says always acting from love within our relationships, I think that can be difficult maybe sometimes because many of us have served as doormats at different times and have not felt secure enough to operate from that place and to believe that the other person is going to return that love. And I know that from my personal journey, this was something that I struggled with, like that deep, deep desire. Yes, I want to act from love always, but how do I protect myself? How do I, and just learning that was just such a important part of the journey. And so I'm just curious if, when Mia says in your relationships, we're going to always show up of what would love do? Did anybody else have that little sense of like, oh, if I show up in love in my relationship all the time, how will I be protected? Or will there be, times when I'm walked on or just taken advantage of? Does anyone have that sense or have it at all? Or are you just far more advanced than I have been?
Anybody wants to speak, just raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Okay.
Joanne?
I would have reacted that way many years ago, but I don't today because I've been in many groups. I'm in adult children of alcoholics meetings, and that's for people that come from dysfunction and people who have been affected by, neglect, abusive situations, just parenting that wasn't very good. And it's passed generationally, so it's in our DNA. So I had to look at that. I had to look at myself and what we're taking in this course we cover in the circles that I'm in. And so I had to look at myself. And now I'm a lot more secure and I have more boundaries to be able to say, whoa, hold on, just wait. Something doesn't feel so great. Or if I'm angry or if I'm upset, I'll be able to just collect myself and not say the mean things or not say the things that I'll regret, or I'll be able to turn around and say, okay, well, let's look at this. Let's take a break. Let's just go our separate ways for a little while and then let's come back and then try to reframe things. I'm trying to learn how to reframe things and rephrase them and look at the triggers and where am I now? Be in the present.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
very
you.
Powerful. Sandy said, yeah, she can relate to that feeling that that I guess a little bit of fear.
Yeah. I love seeing so many of you on here. I have a lot of past clients on here too. Sandy's one of them. I love that. I want to say something about this too. In relationship, when Lori was saying coming from love and being in love with how you're speaking, we're not talking about flirting with people all the time or come on. We're talking about the kindness, the gentleness, the clarity of words, the distinction in how you speak. That's what we're talking about. Now, of course, when you're in a relationship with somebody like that, of course you want to keep it sweet or sassy or sexy or however, but also include that intention of smoothness, harmony, peace. What do you want from your mate? I promised myself the next time I get into a relationship, it has to be with the commitment every day of I'm committing to this person. I've never done that, never wanted to, never done that, never saw the power of it until I became a teacher of this work, and I've been married off and on for a long time. So that's why I'm saying it's how you move forward in your thinking of how you want things. Sometimes talking out loud, I know people think that we're crazy when we talk to ourselves, and you don't have to do it outside your house or outside your area, like outside your bedroom or your office or whatever. But speaking, thinking, observing is really important. And yes, answering yourself, because you're breaking the dialogue so that you can get an answer. You're training yourself not to be cuckoo like people think, but to be a participant in your own life. So whether you talk out loud to yourself or whether you're silent, it doesn't matter. What's important is the observation and then processing everything to how you feel. Emotions and love are part of, well, that was the word I was looking for. Relationships and love are part of emotion. And so in the emotion, we want to make sure that our emotional state of being is solid. We feel strong, we feel confident, we feel the love that we project from inside outward. It's really the best space to move forward in any situation. If you wrote down those few things that I stated there and journaled them, sought them out, what is it like to have peace in my life? What would it feel like to have everyone around me that comes towards me in harmony and smoothness? What do I need to gain from that? Now, I'll share a couple of tips here, and that is, there's one thing that I've taught for a long time, one thing that I've experienced well over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. I've been doing self-love for about 36, 37 years now. But as we grow through the emotional places and spaces, we shift and change. We get bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger within ourselves. But something that I still use today is mankind sees me as God sees me. Now, how does that work for you? How does that feel for you? Some people say, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. Some people are scared. Some people are like, wow, that's a real big thing. But if we're souls, remember, we're spiritual here in this group. If we're souls, don't we want to reflect the highest level that we can? I say in classes, and I've said it recently, I created myself. I was birthed into this world by a woman. I had a father, right? But they didn't create me. I created me. I'm soul. I created me. So I actually, in the last 14 years, have recreated the structure of who I am. My looks, how I dress, how I speak, what I drive, how I want to represent myself, how tall. Look, I'm short, everybody. I'm 5'3". Most people think I'm like 5'8" because I speak and I hold myself a certain way. So it's how you want to be. When we are born and raised in this world, we think that there's one way and one way only, and that's the way of mom and dad. And it is for a while. It is. But the great thing about re-raising yourself, gifting yourself the ability to change, is you can create magic. And I'm serious when I say magic. When life is smooth and you have tools to steady yourself, regain yourself, communicate, you feel powerful. You have recreated yourself. One thing I want to say before we get back into the attached styles is every human has to grow. That's why we're here. We're souls that are incarnated on earth, and we grow and we learn. Now, we can't blame our parents past the age of 18, right? So where are we with this, with ourselves? Where are you guys? And know that each step is a growth step. We need to stop talking negative about ourselves. So that's communication, right? We got to stop that work. Go to the treasure trove, get the self-love tools, the interpersonal development stuff, and work on that. But the point is you have the opportunity from this moment forward to recreate everything about you, no matter what. Everything about you, no matter what. Adulting and re-raising yourself, a new way to see yourself, food for thought. Thank you, Sandy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to give it back to Lori and away we go with attached.
Perfect. And I love how that relates, like when you have these tools, right? And you are able to be authentically yourself, because you're not, stuck in those situations, not knowing how to express yourself, how to show up in a way that is consistent with who you know, right? You really are, which is love. So that's why it's so important to have tools to be able to use in order to do that. So this, I hope, is going to be an effective tool for you. And this is scratching the surface. The book that Mia mentioned, Attached, is a wonderful resource for us, and certainly something that we'd recommend. But basically, if you've not been familiar with attachment styles is really kind of how we see the world. We see the world. You could think of our attachment style as like wearing a pair of glasses and showing up, and we interpret things, whether that be our intimacy or how we see togetherness, how we deal with conflict, our attitude towards sex, our ability to recognize and communicate our needs and desires. All of these things that are so important in a relationship are greatly influenced by the attachment style that we have. So we'll talk about the three main ones today, and we'll also talk about kind of how did that get formed for us, and because that's very useful to kind of see and understand. So we'll start with the attachment style that we'll call here secure. Sometimes this is called anchors. People who are secure are like anchors. They are people who they have the fewest insecurities. They are able to kind of flow with their relationship, so to speak. They can express their needs in a way that helps the other person understand what they are and how the other person can go about meeting them. I would say, what else, Mia, would you like to add about securely attached people, anchors?
They're really powerful people in our lives. Look for those that feel and look secure. The other ones I want to relate to the secure, and that these are the other ones that Lori's talking about, the avoidant and the insecure.
Yeah.
We've all had an avoidant person. They're like, hey, want to do something? And then they ditch you, they dodge you. Or in a relationship, what's another good one in a relationship of an avoidant?
Yeah, in a relation, they may really want to keep things separate. Like, I want my own bank account. I don't want you to know what's in there. And it's not even necessarily that they're doing anything wrong. It's just they don't like the closeness of that, the intimacy that comes from sharing certain aspects of their life. And that's, it can be much more extreme where they, you go out, you have a great time, whatever, they don't reach out to you again for a month, things like that, or just really send a lot of mixed messages. That may be someone who is avoidant. They just want to keep their distance. They want to have some firm boundaries and lines around themselves. And if things start to get more intimate or more, moving along that spectrum, they might really pull back for no other reason than the fact that it feels a little bit uncomfortable to be so close with another person. Yeah. And then we have anxious, insecure. Sometimes we call them waves. And these aren't like people who don't have any confidence necessarily. They just may be people who desire a lot of closeness, don't feel good unless they're inside a relationship. And even when they may have a lot of insecurities and perceive things as either dangers or rejections. So for example, I'm somebody, if I'm have an insecure or anxious attachment style, I may, really need my partner to get back to me within the hour. Say when I text them, I need them to text me back within the hour. Otherwise, my mind's either going to start making up stories. What if they're with somebody? What if they don't love me? I guess they're not thinking about me. All of these things may come to them and may, produce a lot of anxiety for them. They won't feel comfortable in that kind of situation.
Interestingly enough, and I'm not afraid to say it because most of you guys are too, we were raised insecure with not the attachments of knowing our deep love. And so we wonder what's going on. Does that mean we need to stay there? Anybody?
Change our styles.
No, you don't need to stay there. This is why this is so powerful, because you get to grow into a secure position. Now, if you find somebody in a relationship, like I've always been in the insecure position, the greatest way to, when I'm sick, sad, anything, was to make love to me. That's what my first husband did all the time. In my second marriage, it was interesting because he was very secure. That made me grow more into a secure position. Now, not just that, of course, I've done a ton of work, but we want to show you that you don't have to stay in the avoidant or the secure. You can heal yourself. You can change whatever, there's other aspects in the word healing. You can shift, you can move, you can change these awarenesses. And then that if you're an insecure and you're dating or you're with an avoidant, that's not a good thing, right? Why? Because you're being triggered 24/7. So not that it's not good to get rid of them. It's about finding the security within your space. Lori brought up about some people needing to have a specific time when their partners text them back. This is where the mindset tools come in that we're going to work on right now. That just came. Is that okay, Lori?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
And you're just
So
highlighting the fact that, we can't just look at relationships without looking at our emotions, looking at our mindset, looking at our, it's all
exactly.
interwoven. So of course we have to address, all the pieces.
Yeah, when we get scared or frustrated, look at what here I'm going into the parts pieces. Look at what the parts are inside of you. Now, this is a great space to say, wow, I feel like, how do you feel when you feel stressed out that somebody's not responding to you in any way? You might feel scared, triggered like a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. Look at yourself. Until we look at ourselves, we can't move anything. When I started recognizing this year, look, I'm up there. I'm halfway through my life. And this year I realized, because I put the time in, that I was not behaving like, but receiving inside like a teenager. I was being triggered in love constantly. So I had to look at that. I'm not ashamed to say it, because we all grow at amazing paces. When we look at something that's triggering us, we have to stop and identify, one, where it's coming from. And I'll get this off the plate and out of the way, since this is the work that I do. Our abandonment, all the abandonment stuff comes from birth. Once we leave the womb, we are in a different world. That's scary right there. Our parents don't speak our language. We don't speak theirs. We don't understand each other. Information we are putting on ourselves of not being loved, unless you have a squishy wishy parent who is just doting on you 24/7 and trying to anticipate your every need. Most of us didn't have that, and our parents are young and didn't know how to parent. Even the ones like my mother who read Dr. Spock's book, it just was not the whole thing. So it really.
Could I add there too that, it could be there are certain situations where, we were born premature. We needed to be in the incubator, or something else prevented us from being held. And then that just kind of sets up our nervous system to feel a little less secure in the world, right? We missed out on some really important bonding, and through no fault of the parent, right? Our nervous systems just needed more than your typical situation in order to kind of recover from that birth trauma, essentially, or that early developmental. So it can be, situations where the parents did a great job, but our needs were just higher because of whatever, some circumstance, but most of the time, I mean, even when that's the case, like Mia is saying, most of the time, parents are doing the best they can, but we didn't have that scenario where someone was so attuned to us, and it was just provided that constant sense of safety and security at a time when we knew that we could not take care of ourselves. We needed that other person. And that's a very learned type of behavior. So if we didn't have that, then there's insecurity in our world.
Yeah. And if we are patient with ourselves as we move through this, you can see spaces, they may hurt a lot, if you're not being, if you feel you're being ignored. What you have to identify and look at is, you're not being ignored. The other person is dealing with their own stuff. If you always look at the other person that you're dealing with and give them a little bit of slack, I'm not talking about if you have a cheating husband or a cheating partner. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the regular everyday life stuff. Maybe they're going to the bathroom. Maybe they don't feel well. Maybe they're in a meeting. We don't know what even if we know the other person, we may not know what's going on. Oftentimes you might remember getting a text back, oh my God, I'm so sorry, my phone died. Or did you know I was in an accident? We don't know what it is. You have to shift that within yourself, that strength. The more you look at it and just surrender into the space of your own feelings, your own emotions, and looking at them and talking to it. How do I feel? Oh, it is a little scary. Okay, it's all right. And calm yourself. So the mindset tool that I wanted to bring up is, you set your alarm on your clock several times a day. You stop and you ask yourself how you're feeling. And then examine it. Do I like this feeling? Do I not like this feeling? If you like the feeling and you want more of it, then keep doing whatever it is you're doing. If you don't like the feeling, this is a place for you to stop it right there. No, I'm not going to think this way. I don't want to think about that. We have the ability to set new patterns, which shift everything about us. It supports our subconscious in recreating and supporting with our conscious the right information. Does that make sense to people? As we keep layering in new things, I am loved, or I love myself, or the world is not so scary, you're going to be facing everything that once made you afraid, and you can see it's unreality. There's always a way through to support yourself. You as a soul essence is perfect and whole. We just don't recognize that on the human side, and we ignore it. So when you get your text or you're in a space, stop. Definitely observe how you feel. Because if this is a consistent thing in communication where you're not getting the right connection with somebody, then that's something to look at too. But we need to do it and work on it ourselves, how we put it out there. So anytime you're stressed out, not just, and it's part of the mindset tool, but not just getting yourself in that space. So the reason why in mindset tool like this, we do it several times a day is we're teaching ourselves how to do it continuously. I self-monitor myself 24/7. Is that exhausting? No, not at all. It's light, it's airy, because the crap doesn't keep me down, right? I'm being giggled at over here.
First, having that reminder, like, I'm actually going to make space for this, because we can talk about this right now and, walk away and say, oh, that's great, I'm going to be mindful. But our brains are so wired to do the same thing every day, to behave the same way, that if we're not putting like concerted effort into looking, we're just going to get to the end of the day and we're going to miss all of those opportunities, because we're on autopilot for so much of what we do. So actually creating those spaces. It's so surprising to me how when we do create the space, it's like, gosh, I had no idea that was going on. I just lived through it. And because I didn't stop and pay attention, I wasn't aware of it. So I love that, the tool includes actually setting the timer or reminder, whatever it is that you're going to do to actually make space for noticing. It's an important aspect.
That specific mindset tool is one that I've been using with my clients in the Love Mastery to work on healing certain traumas and stuff. So it's the same way. It's about, how do you want to think and feel throughout your day? Do you want to be elevated, or do you want to be down, just operating at a lower level like beta? Like most of humanity, where you just go around doing whatever you do all day long without conscious awareness or thought or input. Yeah, or even a relationship with yourself. I know it sounds crazy. I used to think when I was in this self-love world, and you'd hear everybody think, I'm my own best friend. Well, it sounds very cliche, but the truth and the reality is we do develop a magnificent relationship with ourselves. And this is not arrogant, but of course, I'm going to tell you, I like myself. And I know that sounds funny, right? And yeah, we're going to play humor on it. But if we look at ourselves and recreate even our own, this is what we're talking about, our own communication, our own way of even talking to ourselves. That word, that communication, talking to ourselves, it is bigger than just a relationship with a mate. We're talking about the way we represent and what we'll accept. Nobody's ever told us that we could disallow someone else's behavior in our experience. Now, I'm not talking about knocking him out, punching him out, or telling him to go F off. I'm talking about you being aware of what you want in your space. You are so great and so grand that you can have whatever you want. Now, that kind of talk of great and grand, not very many people talk like that. So if it inspires you, get to that space where you know that you really like yourself, let alone love. We know that love and like are similar, but they're different emotions. We may like a hyena when it laughs, but we may not love it, right? That's the only example I can think of at the moment. You know, they're really cute when they're laughing and being silly, but I certainly don't cherish those. I'm sorry, I'm not crazy about hyenas. So we can move it around to, and how could I love hyenas? I don't know, I'd probably have to get a puppy of a hyena or something in order to love it, to understand it. But the point is we shift and move constantly. We love and we like. What do you want in your life? We want more love. Be with the people that give you that. Don't allow disruption in your everyday life. If you are insecure and you're with an avoidant or an insecure and you love this person and you're like, I want to stay here, great. Then recreate that experience with you and that partner. You can even talk to your partner and see if they're at all interested in doing a process with you to grow themselves. As we grow and we change, sometimes so do the people in our lives. And it's not a bad thing. I know it may feel sad at first, but it really isn't. Why? Because we actually get to bring in people that are like us, that support us. You know, in the spiritual and online world, we hear the word serve us. Well, we don't mean it actually as if somebody's serving us, but we want to get along with people and connection. So know what you want. That's the bottom line. Know what you want. If you're tired of somebody telling you off and belittling you, then that's not what you want. It's simple. Chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream. You get a choice. We're having for dinner. What do you want for dessert? Chocolate or vanilla? It's really that simple. We put too much into it because we've hurt for way too long, because we don't understand ourselves.
Yeah. It can be very challenging to kind of to see ourselves in that way when we do have an insecure attachment style, because we are so fearful of rejection. And, you know, finding, we think, well, if I'm not with this person, I'll probably never find somebody else. You know, that is part of an insecure attachment style. Or, you know, if I stand up for myself and I say what my needs are, they'll leave me. They'll be mad at me. That'll be, you know, this terrible ramification of me honoring myself in that way. So very often, you know, we're hearing these things and we're like, yes, I that resonates in my soul. I feel what Mia's saying is true. I know that about myself. I am wonderful. I do deserve to have my needs met and to be able to communicate them. But then we get in the moment and it's very triggering because we feel that fear of abandonment and that fear of being unpleasing, right, to our partner. And that can kind of overcome this, you know, self-love and the things that we're working to achieve.
Lori had said earlier, how do we get these attachment styles? And we touched on them a little bit. And I want to get back to, just so that we have the foundational pieces in place, you get them, like we said, from your birth, from your family, from the ones that are influencing you. That's why as we grow, we choose who we want to be in our inner circle, because we want to grow. If we're not choosing people that support us, if we're not in a circle of friends that'll make us grow, what are we doing there? What are we doing there?
And it doesn't always mean getting rid of people in every situation. It is, but it's standing as who you want to be. And then, you know, that it's surprising how much a relationship can change just from one person becoming and honoring who they really are. So, you know, in some cases, yes, it does require moving on from a person or changing the you know, the structure of the relationship or something. But a lot of times it's just a matter of you honoring yourself enough to set those boundaries, to create the structure that you need in order to live as your authentic self and to get your needs met. So as we talk about it, it is important for you to be surrounded by the right people, etc. But it doesn't always mean everybody needs to go. I'm gonna start out only with certain
No, Mia says get rid of them. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's owning yourself first. And until you own yourself and love yourself, you don't know who you need and want around you. You don't know how to create it. So that is such a foundational step that we keep bringing up again and again, is to know yourself and honor yourself, because from that place, you know what you want to create. So that is something that, we'll just keep coming back to over and over.
And just like when you were younger, I don't know why I'm going to my third grade teacher. We used to do a lot of little plays and stuff in class. Who did you want to be? And are you even close to that today? And why? It's amazing to reevaluate or evaluate, if you've never done it before, who you are. I'm going to throw this out really quick because I think it would support this. In the treasure trove is the dream, believe, create process. And it takes you through the 5 pillars of life, which is spirituality, home, body, work, and relationships. And you recreate your relationships as if you're recreating a movie, and your life and your work. Expand out so far that you can see years out there. Now, guess what's going to happen? When you inspire yourself so much to create your life, you're going to go out and do it, because you're going to connect. Your synapses are going to all get in space. And I got to do this. I got to do this. This is a process that started me on this coaching journey, literally, when I was in the wheelchair. And this is how I got out of my wheelchair from an accident at Target in the early 2000s. So when we look and evaluate what we want, guess what's going to happen? Once we start to create it, we're going to redo it and recreate it, because we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So right now, you think you may want to write a book, you may want to go buy a new house, but really your desire might be, oh no, I don't want a house down the street. I want to live in Rome. I want to live over here. What are the biggest dreams you've ever had? This is your life on earth. Right now, we need to change the things, the communication style, even within ourselves, so that we can gain what we want in our life now. It's not too late. I heard somebody. It's not too late. Whoever that is thinking it's too late. It's not too late. I don't care if you're on death's door. It's not too late. I've been on death's door. It's not too late. So I'm going to give it over to Lori.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might cry like a baby.
Yeah.
Because this is beautiful stuff, literally, right?
We are that powerful when we decide and really allow for that space. Where do we want to be, and what do we want to create? It will be there. And it's so what we're talking about here is kind of removing one of those barriers. Right? Because if we want that and we want to create, then we need to understand ourselves. We need to understand our attachment styles. We need to understand how those are showing up in our relationships. So, so that is kind of what I see as the first step to effective communication, is understanding what your style is and when you're triggered. So that is something for us as you're going through, maybe thinking about some of the things that we're talking about and giving you steps, maybe spending a few days on just this question or a week and asking yourself, what is my attachment style? It may require you to kind of look at your relationships and how you show up in them, and be watching for circumstances to come up, actual events, and notice, how do I act in here? What are my thoughts about, when the person canceled on me, or when, whatever it is. And again, it's not just romantic relationships. We tend to be most triggered within those because they're supposed to be our biggest sense of security. So that's really, for me, the starting point is, what is my attachment style? How does it show up in my relationships? especially looking at when I feel triggered. So triggered is, I would say, and Mia, you can certainly add to this, but I would say feeling triggered means, it's that essentially undesired feeling, right? I don't feel good. But it's also, you may notice yourself acting out in ways that don't feel like you, how you would want to behave if you were kind of, what I like to say, in your right mind, meaning really connected to yourself. So that could be like, sometimes it's referred to as protest behavior. So maybe, someone doesn't return your call, or, cancels, or for a good reason or whatever. And because you're feeling triggered, you may decide, well, I'm not going to speak to them for a few days, or I'm going to not answer their call and let them wonder what I'm doing or where I am, or if I care about them anymore. Or, we do a lot of things. Or we might be like, okay, I'm going to I'm going to reach out every 10 minutes, or I'm going to go to their workplace, or go find them, or, you can imagine all kinds of different scenarios. When we're acting in ways that really don't feel consistent, we're being reactionary, but it doesn't feel like, yeah, that's who I want to be in this situation. You're being triggered. So really looking for those and understanding them. And then I would say the second step is to own it. I had the hardest time because I see myself as an independent person, as a very secure person. And when I had to do this work and really look at myself, I discovered that I kind of lean more in the insecure, anxious attachment style. And I did not want to be that. So my first inclination was like, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. Okay, I see it. I'm just gonna not act that way. I'm not going to feel that way anymore. And that's not how we shift, right? We don't shift by just demanding ourselves, ignoring what's going on for ourselves. We have to own that, and that's who we are. And as Mia was saying earlier, we can shift. We can have big shifts, but there might still be an underlying current, right, of an anxious style. I was listening to Gabor Mate, who's one of the most beautiful speakers on many topics, but he talks a lot about trauma, addiction, and all kinds of things. And he shared from his personal standpoint, all the work that he's done. He's dedicated to this every single day. He says, my anxious attachment style still shows up. He said, I forgot how old he is. He's 70 somewhere. And that attachment style for him, because of the trauma that he suffered as a baby, essentially, still shows up in his relationship, even though he could talk to you all day about all of these things and how to overcome and how to heal and all this stuff. So we can definitely shift and create whole new experiences, but as a starting point, we need to own that and honor that about ourselves, because if we're just shoving it down and saying, I don't want to be that, then we're not going to be able to meet our needs. So knowing that, and then you can start to ask the question, well, how am I going to go about shifting? How am I going to go about shifting and also creating the relationship that I want, given my style and how I'm feeling and what I need. And from there, it comes back to that connection with yourself and myself, I mean, your higher self, right? And really identifying what your needs are. So what I like to do as a third step is to really list your needs. And this third step should be like a fantasy list of needs. Like if you had like your fantasy person, they would, whatever it is, they would text me every hour on the hour just to say thinking about you or I love you. They would take me out, they would plan fun outings for us. Just be creative as far as letting it all, what would really do it for you as far as making you feel the way you want to feel in your relationship. And then bringing that list to your higher self, right? And say, okay, there has to be some level of realism here. I'm working with another person, right? And really asking yourself, given where your relationship has been, what kind of person they are, etc. What are just a couple of things that you could work on that would really start to shift you into that space? And then from there, you'll kind of reach a new baseline, and you can go back in again and really start to build. What is not usually helpful is you wake up one day and say, hey, mate, of mine, I'm realized all this stuff, and so you need to change in these 15 ways, and these are all my needs. And that usually is not a conversation that goes over very well, right? So by you kind of letting this kind of flow through you and develop it with a little bit of a more of a expanded time frame, just keep asking those questions and taking it to your higher self, and your higher self will guide you as to which one of these things should I really ask for? Because all of our needs are very, very important, and they need to be honored. And we just need to have the direction from our higher self as to how to approach getting them met. So you might decide, my ultimate would be if I had someone, checking in with me every hour and sending me that. Well, you might want to ask for, a check-in at a certain time, and then try that on and see how it feels. Sometimes that would be enough. And then just that one small thing, that security, can help you shift into a little bit more of a secure attachment, and also know yourself, and yourself is watching you take care of you. Because even though that text is going to come from the other person, you're taking care of yourself by acknowledging it and asking for it and making it happen. And that is that security that I am going to meet my needs. Yes, I'm going to maybe sometimes need other people to participate in that. But the fact that you are doing that is such a beautiful and secure place to live from. So Mia, I don't know if you have anything to add to that piece, kind of that first initial process. And then I do want to talk about the kind of a couple of pillars of effective communication before we end our time together.
I just want to say a little bit about the triggers that Lori mentioned. I'm sure some of you may not even know that you're being triggered. So settle into yourself and talk to yourself. If you don't know, ask yourself, I want to know next time I'm triggered. If we talk to ourselves, we're able to shift things. You will be aware when you're triggered, just like the mindset where you ask yourself, no, I don't like this feeling. And so you're more aware of it and you're able to move it. There's also spinning, like out of control. That's where people go from the moment they get triggered. They go round and round and round. And trigger is like, oh, and then you react, and then you can balance yourself. Spinning is where, I don't know if this is a technical word, I don't think it is, but we all use it. It's where you just keep going round and round in circles with your grief, with your anger, with your stress. So look at that. Breathe. We don't breathe enough. Do some breathing exercises to fill your body with oxygen, to start to change the brain waves. Breathe, and then look at it. I still get triggered today as a grown-ass woman with my intimate partners. Okay, so saying that lets you know that we all have spaces. No one's perfect. And those who do the work, guess what? They still have work to do. And that's kind of the fun about it, literally. All right, Lori, you're going to move us into.
Still have work, but it feels, instead of feeling hard, it feels exhilarating. It feels, there's a flow and ease to it that is kind of exciting. It's like, you can run up against something and you can say, ooh, a chance for me to
conquer it.
An upgrade. And, what is this going to be like on the other side? How exciting. Yeah. So I'm really pulling from when I went through, and I use this book a lot, the effective communication. So I just want to make note that it's primarily from there. There are other nuances and things, but the recommendations are just really solid. And so, looking at the different pieces of it, the first one is they say, wear your heart on your sleeve, which is to say, especially like in the example that I was giving for myself, like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be someone who is not securely attached. And so, that would cause me to not speak up, not say, hey, could you just, touch base with me once a day, or whatever it is. And the examples are, endless of what it could look like, but I would just ignore the need because I didn't want to be that needy person, right? So being willing to be vulnerable and to acknowledge with the other person that these are my feelings, right? And it doesn't have to be a blame situation where I feel this way because of what you did. It can be you own, I feel this way because of, my attachment style. You don't have to get into, our whole conversation today and all the background, but just one phrase that I really like to use is, I thrive when.
Mhm.
And I might say, I really thrive, or I really love it when I hear from you about, how your work day's going, or, whatever it is. Letting them know how much you like something, as opposed to, hey, you're not doing something right. But being willing to own your feelings, right? And really the second point is focusing on your needs. And again, it's the same kind of thing where you're talking about what you need, what you feel, what you want, as opposed to what you're not doing for me, right? That's always going to go over much better, depending. I feel I don't feel confident right now in our relationship, or I don't feel valued, or whatever it is that you're actually feeling. Being willing to be open and to share that. And then the other thing is to be the third thing would be to be very specific about it. You're the person, if you feel kind of sheepish for bringing it, like you're not entitled to ask for things, or you're not entitled to have your needs heard, then you're going to show up and you might talk in a way that doesn't allow them to really understand what it is that you need from them. And then that creates an anxiety for them because they don't know what to do. So being as specific as you can, giving them the solution or a proposed solution. It doesn't have to be you do this or else, but you could say, what would you think about doing this? And then that takes a lot of the pressure off them to try to figure out what it is that you would satisfy that need. Sometimes we think it's like entirely obvious, but the other person may not, because they've not been sitting in those needs and those emotions like you have for a long time. So it just really takes the pressure off them when we can be as specific as possible. The fourth and fifth thing that they mentioned, we've already touched on, but it's number 4 is don't blame. So again, that just means this is not something you're doing wrong necessarily. It could be, right? It could be a behavior that is truly unacceptable inside a relationship. But very often it's just a matter of, this is what I need. This is what I'm noticing. This is what I would like. And not so much about you're not doing it right or something in that regard. And I would say there to make sure, because sometimes when we're triggered, it can be very challenging to not make it about them. So just making sure that you've taken a little bit of time, maybe before you start your effective communication, to make sure that you're connected with your higher self, that you are connected with the love that you have for the person, and your desire to not to have conflict, but to actually strengthen the bond. And so that is something I would add as a kind of a separate thing, taking that time and focusing in on what you want to create at the end of this conversation, right? I want us to walk away feeling, hugging and feeling like I was understood, and they feel appreciated for doing that. And then the fifth thing that they mentioned, as I said, we already kind of touched on, which is be assertive and non-apologetic. And that's what I was talking about when I first started this conversation. We got to own it. We have to, if this is our need, it doesn't matter if someone else has the need or someone else thinks it's a good need or whatever. If it's there, we have to address it, because if we don't, we're going to end up resentful. We're not going to be able to show up. Mia is always talking about, and it's so important, our vibration, right? That's why I like the phrase, I thrive when, because I do. My vibration is high when I'm feeling taken care of, when I've met my needs, whatever that is, and when I've expressed them and made sure that I'm doing all I can to provide for myself. My vibration is much, much different, and I create from that space. I'm able to create the life that I want from that space. So those are my needs, and I don't say them like, get your crap together because you're going to have to do this for me. We use the effective communication that we've been talking about, but we don't push our needs under the table, and we trust our higher self to bring them to the other person in the best way possible. So those are kind of the 5 just really important. And of course, lots that we talked about before is like the precursor, right, to that, taking those steps, those 5 steps. But it can just be, and you can imagine, an entirely different scenario, different relationship when you employ these tools.
Use the gentleness of love, like we began in the very beginning. What would love do? How would love react? If you sit with yourself and observe, then you're able to move through things. We need to learn to be observers, because this is where all healing takes place. Now, observation is not judgment. Observation is like meditation. You're observing it and you're processing it through that same vein. You're looking at it. How does it affect you? How can you shift things? When we talk to ourselves, remember I said about talking to ourselves, when we talk to ourselves silently, you can talk to yourself in observation, meditation, and processing, because you're saying, this doesn't feel right. Okay, what would be the way in which I could move smoothly? Oh, I need to sit here and think about it and surrender. Okay, sometimes surrendering and just allowing the processes to move through you without fear is a great way to get through it and to the other side. So ask yourself in every situation, especially emails and people who you encounter outside of your norm, how would love handle that situation?
Yeah. And that's
Lori,
yourself provides the safety, right, that you need to live from that place. Because when we don't feel safe, that's when we're going to show up in those spaces not acting from love, right? We're going to be protecting ourselves. And so security with yourself, just such a foundational piece for everything.
Right. All right, we're past our hour. Thank you all for being here. I would like to say that, and is this okay with you, Lori? Next week, after we have class, we can go over and spend a little bit of time for those of you who want to talk about your homework next week. We can do that after the next week's class, talk about this week's homework. So that would be everything that we stated during that time that we asked you to do. There were a few little there was journal prompting, right? Lori, didn't I say, who wants to help me here? Who wants to help me on? Does anybody remember? Think about
available.
What, babe?
We'll have the replay available as well. So
and it'll be in the classroom.
Yeah,
It'll be up today in the classroom, in the Self-Love Revolution classroom. Yeah, so think about think about what style you feel you are and write about it and why. There's a why of why we are either insecure, avoidant, or secure. And what would you like to be and why? Awareness, I used to dislike this. Awareness is key, but awareness is key. We can't move, shift, or change without awareness. So, and if you listen to this recording again and come up with more questions, bring them to the Q&A at the end of next week's class. Okay? It was lovely to see you all. Will you stay on for a moment, Lori? And I'm going to stop the recording.